It's 3:18 a.m. on a Tuesday. On the floor of a Tennessee polymer plant, a 3,200-ton injection molding press trips a high-pressure fault, halting the line. Behind that fault code is an OSI Soft Pi historian holding 18 months of telemetry and an SAP system of record managing the plant's maintenance ledger. Wired into both is an agentic field service assistant, which immediately pushes an alert to the senior technician on duty. The agent opens a recommendation card on her tablet with a specific directive: re-queue the work order and delay the maintenance until 6:30 a.m. To justify this delay, the agent provides a direct quote. It states as a matter of record that this specific technician prefers to wait for day shift on hydraulic faults. The technician overrides the prompt, but untangling that recommendation requires 47 minutes of escalation with the night shift supervisor. By the time the press comes back online, the plant has recorded $18,000 in unmade product. 2 days later, the reliability engineering team pulls the logs to find out exactly where the agent pulled that preference from. They find the source in a transcript from a completely different session, recorded 11 weeks earlier during a Friday night shift. The technician had dealt with a different alarm and made an offhand, frustrated comment about not paging the engineering lead at 4 a.m. The agent monitoring that session read the text and inferred a broad user preference from a single moment of annoyance. That inference crossed a line. The agent took a guess and wrote it to long-term memory without attaching a provenance tag and without setting an expiration date. Nearly 3 months later, a different agent in a different session fetched that stale guess and presented it to the user as if it were a strict operational procedure signed off in SAP. This exposes the worst architectural sin you can commit in multi-agent design: persisting model-inferred guesses as if they were authoritative facts. When large language models operate continuously, their context crosses time and downstream sessions. If you treat that cross-session memory as a passive cache where the model can dump whatever it wants, rather than enforcing a strict enterprise write contract, institutional drift is guaranteed. On the left, within-session state in the LangGraph Checkpointer acts as RAM. On the right, cross-session memory in the LangGraph BaseStore is disk storage. Data crossing this line requires a strict write contract. To prevent hallucinations, every fact must pass 2 orthogonal tests. The first filter is the recurrence test. We ask, will the next session benefit from this fact? Passing requires proving the data is an ongoing pattern, like fixed schedules or repetitive equipment behaviors. The second filter is the provenance test. Is the data authoritative or inferred? Authoritative data has a paper trail. Inferred data is a mid-session guess. Crossing these creates a 2x2 matrix with 4 non-negotiable decisions. The model becomes a routing layer, not an unreliable historian. The top left quadrant is cell A, persist with citation. We place facts like the 2400-hour die maintenance interval here because they pass both tests. The event recurs, and the specification is explicitly signed off by the system of record. The bottom left quadrant is cell B, persist as candidate. This receives recurring patterns lacking a paper trail, like a technician preferring text messages. The agent can save this to rank future channels, but is strictly forbidden from quoting it downstream as an established fact. The top right quadrant is cell C, ephemeral. This captures one-off historical events, like a specific alarm's closure time. The system of record already holds this. Persisting it duplicates the truth and clutters the retrieval space, so we drop it. Finally, the bottom right quadrant is cell D, ephemeral. This captures transient inferred noise, like a technician seeming annoyed. This unverified guess caused the $18,000 failure. By purging cell D instantly, we replace a passive vector store with an active, mathematically rigid data triage system. A conceptual matrix is only useful if locked down in code. We define a pedantic V2 memory entry schema to enforce our persistence policy before any database write occurs. Every memory entry must pass a linter check declaring its exact origin. The schema forces the LLM to commit to a provenance tag. The data came from a system of record, was inferred, or was emitted by the agent. The most critical variable is the quotable to downstream Boolean. If provenance is inferred, the quotable Boolean must be false, with a strict expiration date. Defining these rules through pedantic linters provides an absolute backstop. The database simply rejects unauthorized invalid state. The rigid database schema protects the long-term store. But we also govern the execution layer, how the agent reads and writes data. We manage this using prompt hygiene rules, strict operational verbs triggered precisely at session start and end boundaries. At the session end boundary, we instruct the agent to write every emitted fact with its explicit provenance and recurrence evidence attached. This forces the agent to document and justify its state consolidation process before the thread terminates. At the session start boundary, the instruction flips to the read side. The agent recalls only entries where quotable to downstream is true, unless it explicitly asks for candidates. This silencer prevents historical, unverified guesses from loading into context and contaminating the session. Advanced agentic frameworks like Letta push this structure even further by separating the active execution from the memory management entirely. They use a sleep time compute agent. This is an offline, asynchronous routine that wakes up to triage the primary agent's short-term context, carefully packaging it into clean, schema-validated long-term memories. If Cardinal Polymer had run a sleep time consolidation process over that initial Friday night session, the algorithm would have examined the offhand complaint, flagged it as an inferred, non-recurrent outlier, and automatically purged it from the record overnight. Long-horizon, multi-agent coherence requires total data discipline. It is only possible when engineers abandon the idea of AI memory as an unverified scrapbook and instead build it as a ruthless, verifiable state machine write contract.